Well, we're very excited to be here. It's obviously a heck of a story when a year ago we played Wisconsin. At the time, we were the number 1 seed, they were the number 2 seed. And here we are again a year later as the reverse, where they're the number 1 and we're the number 2. But I think both programs kind of have one thing in common, and that is that we have a great core group of players that have been with us over these last couple of seasons that have made both seasons very, very special. And we're looking forward to the game tomorrow very much.
You've actually said, or you said last year, that you embrace when people say, okay, the best coach who hasn't been to the Final Four. Why would you embrace it, and do you think it's a fair or unfair kind of thing people put out there about coaches, given all you've won before that, what Coach Ryan did, Coach Keedy, everyone, it's been in that moment. Why do you say I embrace it?
I don't know if I have an alternative. You know, if you don't embrace it, what do you do? I think there's a lot of pressure on coaches. I think if you just follow what's happening this week about March Madness and making the tournament, and now it becomes advancing in the tournament, and probably sometimes unfairly so, because you know these guys will tell you winning the Pac-12 regular season championship through 18 games, 9 at home, 9 on the road, is an amazing accomplishment. You can make the argument that for us, I don't know if there's anything harder, more difficult to achieve, but yet not many people ask us about winning the Pac-12 regular season championship or back-to-back years like we have. The focus is always on that last game. No, I think when you play Wisconsin, you know, it's a game of small victories, small battles, because the possessions are so long. You know, on their end of the offensive end, they're very deliberate. They share the ball. They're highly skilled and intelligent. They don't beat themselves. And you're on defense for a lot longer against them than any other team. And it's easy to break down. Sometimes you break down at the very end with a foul. Sometimes you break down off the ball and they make a cut that does you in, a second shot, which I thought last night really hurt North Carolina. Wisconsin got a couple big second shots. So, you know, I think to me it's, you know, the game goes by fast. You know, it doesn't seem to take as long because there isn't a lot of fouling and these possessions are so long. So more of their style stands out for me than the actual ending. You know, block charge call. I don't know, is it a block, was it a charge? I think about that every 10 minutes, 20 minutes. But you can't control that. What you can control, especially now that we're playing again, is to do the best that we can with who we are and really respect why they're such a great team, and they really are, especially on the offensive end.
Paul Above in Arizona Republic. Sean, who was the Rondé he was referring to earlier? Rondé, early in his career, said he was kind of tough to coach. What was he like?
His heart has always been in the right place, and he's a great competitor. When you ask some of these young players to practice for 2.5 hours again and again and again, and when's the next game? It's not for a while. And then you play a game, and it's like, guess what? The next day you practice. It catches them off guard. And as much as they think they know how to work hard and how everything is important, not until they get into our programs do they truly understand. So I think Rondé, who has always won and looked at himself as a competitor, kind of needed a more comprehensive approach to becoming a good player himself and understand that how many different things there is in the game. Screening, off the ball, you know, what you do off the ball on offense, not just when you have it. And even as a defensive player, he's grown so much. Nick Johnson, I thought a year ago, really helped him, show him the way, which you hope is a part of your program. But it's those types of things that I think he was referring to. And I also think he now does some of those things with tremendous pride because he knew how hard they were for him to do a year ago. Well, it starts with our tradition. Long before I ever got here, our tradition is based on the state of California, and in particular Southern California. We all can rattle off the great Arizona players. Steve Kerr comes to mind. Chase Budinger comes to mind. Derek Williams, who was one of our first. But those guys have come here to the University of Arizona and thrived. Solomon Hill from Fairfax High School, who took 4 years, who was that guy that I was just asked about, and you look at him right now starting for the Indiana Pacers. But when a number of people in the past have done it and have gone on to do great things, those future players tend to look at you with bright lights. And I'll also tell you this, that the only thing that you have to do is come to a home game at McHale Center, and you see that there aren't many places that love and embrace college basketball more than Tucson, more than our fans. And when you're 18 years old, Stanley Johnson, you want to play in front of a packed house. You want to play in front of a crowd. Fever pitch, 14,500. And we have that 17 times a year regardless of who we play. So it's our tradition. It's what we have. And obviously, I think every one of these guys wants to compete in these games. And we've been in these games. And hopefully we can continue.
Damian Alameda, Tucson News Now. Sean, referencing the back and forth that Stanley mentioned after Arizona lost to Wisconsin last year and while he was on the verge of winning his fourth state title, what do you remember of that conversation?
Well, like he said, I did. I congratulated him, obviously, on winning his fourth state championship, and he got right back to me and said, Coach, great season for you guys, and next year, just so you know, we're going to get back to that game, and we're going to go 2 games further, or 3 games. I forgot how he said it, but that's what he said, and it is very ironic that we find ourselves here again playing Wisconsin in the Elite-8. It remains to be seen if it comes true, but that's what he said, and I think it's a great story to have all of us here again. Well, yeah, I mean, I've been in the Elite-8 5 times, once as an assistant and 4 times now as a head coach. So if it ends there, it sticks with you for sure. But for me and for our team and really our program, because Arizona, you also can't forget that it's quite an accomplishment to be at this level. And I think there has to be some gratification. There has to be a good feeling as well. If there isn't, I mean, you're working awfully hard for something that doesn't happen very frequently, and that is to be in the Final Four or win a national championship. But I keep going back to what I said, and that is, all of us have a process and a way of doing things. And if it's comprehensive enough and you have the peace of mind that it works, eventually you keep knocking at the door enough, it'll break through. But the determination, I don't know if I'm any more or less determined. I knew when I came to Arizona that was what we were trying to do, and we're still trying.
Raphael Johnson, NBC Sports. Looking forward to tomorrow's game. While they have some guys who have slightly different roles, Nigel Hayes and Bronson Koenig, does it help your guys any to have a reference point in the form of last year's game?
Very much so, and it's as much because of the uniqueness of Wisconsin, their deliberate pace, their ball movement, how they play their own version of man-to-man defense. It's a style that's somewhat unique. I think the more familiarity that you have with it, it has to be to your advantage. And, us not being in the Big Ten or even from that area of the country, not only didn't we ever play against Wisconsin, or very frequently, or I should say the guys that were on last year's team didn't, but you don't see them a lot either. You see them maybe on a SportsCenter highlight or on an occasional game. I'm sure they feel the same way about us. But we know how good Frank Kaminsky is. We know how disciplined their team is. We know that they don't beat themselves. And you're right, we have the experience of at least going through it once. And I can't help but think in some way that's going to be to our advantage. By the way, they have the same advantage. It's just that they won last year's game.
Tom Oates, Wisconsin State Journal. Sean, we heard your players talk about getting you to a Final Four. Some of the players talked last night that, said Wisconsin has definitely been on their minds for a year. Is there any danger of those guys making this game bigger than it is?